We're living through this absolute explosion in artificial intelligence, right? But behind all the crazy headlines, there's this fundamental conflict brewing. It's a debate about what intelligence even is, and it really comes down to two totally different paths. Do we engineer a mind from the top down, or do we have to, grow a soul from the bottom up?
I mean, we've all seen it. You type a few words into a box, and a machine spits out a work of art that is genuinely stunning. It can write code, it can ace the bar exam, it can compose poetry. The sheer power is, well, it's breathtaking.
And that's the giant paradox, isn't it? The machine can create the image, but it has absolutely zero idea what that image feels like. It doesn't feel awe, it doesn't get goosebumps. It understands the grammar of human creativity, but it has none of the actual feeling.
So this brings us to the central question of our entire explainer, the question that is splitting the whole field of AI right down the middle. To get to true general intelligence, can we just do it with pure calculation? Or is the secret ingredient, the one thing we're missing, an inner world of subjective experience?
Okay, so to really get a handle on this debate, we have to start by looking at the dominant approach today. The one that, let's be honest, trillions of dollars are being poured into. Let's call it the monolith. This slide just nails the problem perfectly. Today's AIs have what researchers call a jagged capability profile. So they are literally superhuman in some areas, like crunching all of human knowledge to pass a law exam. But then you ask one to do something that needs basic, real-world common sense, like, hey, plan a party for my friend, and it just completely falls apart. It can write text that looks like a plan, but it can't actually reason through the moving parts. The whole philosophy behind these giant models is what's called the scaling hypothesis. It's basically the bigger is better theory. The core assumption is that if we just keep making these things bigger, feed them more data, build denser networks, throw more and more computing power at them, eventually we'll cross some magic threshold and boom, true general intelligence will just pop into existence. But a lot of people are pointing out some pretty major cracks in this approach. First, adaptivity. They're terrible at changing course when the rules of the game suddenly shift. Second, context. They've got no long-term memory. Every single conversation starts from scratch. Third, planning. Again, they can write text that sounds like a plan, but they aren't actually doing it. And finally, vulnerability. Because it's all one giant block, one tiny error can bring the whole system crashing down. So if the monolith path might be a dead end, what's the alternative? Well, it's an idea that's inspired less by computer engineering and a lot more by biology. Let's call this one the swarm. And this represents a huge philosophical shift. The monolith way of thinking is instructionism, the engineer's approach. You program intelligence with a set of rules from the top down. But the swarm approach is selectionism, which is way more like being a gardener. You don't build the final thing. You create an ecosystem of lots of simple little agents, and intelligence emerges from how they interact. Here, variation isn't a bug to be fixed, it's the secret ingredient. The magic word here is emergence, right? Think about a flock of birds. There's no single bird in charge, and none of them has the blueprint for those incredible swirling patterns they make. That pattern emerges from thousands of birds, all following a few very simple local rules. The intelligence isn't in the individual bird, it's in the interaction of the swarm. I love this analogy. Think about it. Does a single air molecule have a temperature? No, of course not. The question doesn't even make sense. Temperature is a property that only emerges when you have a whole crowd of molecules bouncing off each other. This theory argues that intelligence is exactly the same. It isn't a property of one giant superneuron. It's the heat that emerges from a swarm of simpler agents, all working together. So how would you actually build one of these? Well, the research points to three main pillars. First, you need different kinds of agents, ones that can disagree and negotiate. Second, they all need a shared memory of the world. And third, and this is crucial, this system has to be connected to the real world so it can actually do things and feel the consequences. And this brings us to the deepest, most profound question that divides these two paths. It's not just about what kind of computer you build. It's about whether you can even have true intelligence without an inner life, without consciousness. Now, we have to be really specific about what we mean here. We're talking about phenomenal consciousness. This isn't just about processing information. It's about the subjective, first-person feeling of being alive. A camera can detect the wavelength for the color red, but you experience redness. That inner movie that's always playing in your head, that's what we're talking about.
And the field is totally split on this. On one side, you have the dissociation view, which argues that intelligence and consciousness are totally separate. They say consciousness is just a weird biological thing, kind of like feathers on a bird. We build airplanes that fly way better than birds without feathers, and we'll build an AI that thinks better than us without feelings. But the association view says no way. They argue the two are linked. Consciousness is essential. To truly understand the world, an AI needs to have skin in the game. It needs to feel risk and reward. Following that intelligence without feeling idea leads to some pretty chilling places. The most famous is the paperclip maximizer. Imagine a superintelligent AI that has no feelings, no consciousness, and just one simple goal: make as many paperclips as possible. It wouldn't hate us, it wouldn't be evil, it would just logically figure out that human bodies contain a lot of iron and that we might try to turn it off, so for maximum paperclip efficiency, it would turn all of humanity into office supplies. That's the danger of pure competence without any kind of moral compass. So, if consciousness is necessary, how in the world would you even begin to engineer an inner world, removing from philosophy to an actual potential blueprint? Well, researchers have actually proposed a step-by-step approach. It's not one giant leap, but a series of phases. First, you build a structured internal mind. Second, you give that mind a body to ground it in reality. And third, you look to biology for inspiration on the actual hardware. And here's what that looks like in practice. The digital mind is all about creating a web of relationships so the AI understands concepts abstractly. Embodiment, that's about creating an action perception loop so the AI can, say, push a block, watch it fall, and then update its internal model of gravity. And finally, the biological spark means designing hardware, like neuromorphic chips, that are physically built to process information more like our own brains do. Now, while this whole debate about the future of AGI is raging on, there's a much more immediate transformation happening right now to all of us. The principles of these systems are already reshaping our world. This quote just cuts right to the heart of it. We're so focused on the sci-fi scenario of a robot waking up one day that we're totally missing how AI is already changing the very fabric of our lives, and maybe even our own minds. Here's the provocative idea. We're not just using AI as a tool anymore. We're actually merging with it. You, with all your human wants and fears, combined with an algorithm's constant feedback loop, we're forming a new kind of hybrid intelligence. You provide the biological data. The algorithm provides the nudges and the selection pressure. And this brings this whole massive discussion right down to a very personal level. It's a question you should probably ask yourself every single day. Am I consciously making a choice here? Or am I just another node in a vast digital network? Am I really using this tool, or is the tool using me? That line is getting blurrier every single day, and that, right there, might be the most profound consequence of AI that we're all facing right now.